It was supposed to be just another weekend away, but nothing's been the same since he pinned me down and didn't let go. There's something about packing an old duffel bag that makes you realize how much can change in a year. The same hoodie that once smelled like bonfire smoke now carries the faint scent of him his cologne must have rubbed off the last time he borrowed it, even though he acted like it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't the first thing of mine he's borrowed and never returned, and I've never once asked for it back. We were headed to a cabin in the woods with a few of our friends. Same as last year, same chipped wooden deck, same ridiculous arguments over who gets the bigger room, same endless supply of soda, junk food, and sarcasm. But this time felt different. Maybe it was because we were older now. Maybe because this trip came after a stretch of weird silences and long stares between us that neither of us ever talked about. Or maybe because I couldn't keep pretending I didn't want more. I've known him since I was 15. He was loud, always a little too competitive, always cracking jokes that had everyone laughing, me included, especially me. And even when his jokes were bad, he'd shoot me that grin like we were the only ones in on something secret. It used to make my stomach flutter, but I didn't let myself name that feeling back then. Now I'm 20, old enough to name it, still too scared to say it out loud. He's always been touchy, arm slung over my shoulder, leaning into me on the couch, shoving me playfully when I beat him at a video game. But lately those touches have landed differently. They lingered just a second too long, and I find myself noticing things I used to ignore. The way his fingers drum on his thigh when he's anxious. The way his voice lowers when we're alone. The way he looks at me when he thinks I'm not watching. The cabin was only 2 hours away, tucked between old trees and the edge of a lake that reflected the early spring sky like glass. By the time we arrived, the group scattered, some heading for the kitchen, some to set up in the rooms, and somehow, as always, he and I were the last ones to unpack. He nudged me with his shoulder while I was pulling my hoodie over my head. "You gonna spend this whole weekend hiding under that thing?" I smirked. "Maybe. Keeps me safe from your ego." He grinned. That grin that always messes me up more than it should. My ego's the only thing keeping this group alive. I rolled my eyes, but I smiled. He had that effect on me. Later, while the others played cards or shouted over some movie, we wandered outside. Just the two of us. No plan. Just ... space. And I could feel it building something unsaid between us. We stopped by the edge of the deck, watching the sun sink behind the trees. He bumped my arm. "Remember when we wrestled right here last year? You swore you almost broke your back." I laughed quietly. "Yeah, because you don't know when to quit." He turned to face me, leaning on the railing, and there was a flicker in his eyes I couldn't place. "You let me win." I didn't respond. Couldn't. The silence stretched between us, comfortable, and yet thick with something I didn't understand. I looked away first. I always do. We met during our first year of high school. I was the quiet one in the back of the classroom who sketched in the margins of his notebook and only spoke when called on. He was the opposite, the kind of guy who made an entrance even when he wasn't trying to. Loud laugh, bright eyes, confident in a way I envied, but never admitted. Somehow, maybe by fate or cosmic prank, we got paired up for a group project, and that was it. He decided we were friends. I remember him saying, "You're weird, but like the kind of weird I like." He never gave me the space to disappear again after that. I didn't want him to. We bonded over the dumbest things. Shared hate for cafeteria meatloaf. A mutual obsession with an old video game we both thought no one else remembered. He used to come over to my place and fall asleep mid-match. Controllers still in hand, his head tilted back on my couch like he belonged there. Over the years, we slipped into this rhythm, a strange but comforting mix of insults, support, and moments of quiet where we didn't need to say anything. Now, here we were older, supposedly wiser, but the energy between us had shifted in. The cabin, things still felt familiar. He'd drop his bag in the middle of the hallway, like always. I'd pick it up and pretend to scold him. We'd fight over the last can of soda, only for him to sneak it into my hand later, when he thought no one was looking. It was all routine, all easy. But under it all, something buzzed quietly like the first note of a song we hadn't played yet. On the second night, it got colder than expected. None of us checked the forecast. Most of the others had brought heavier sleeping bags or claimed the beds early. He and I had agreed to take the floor in the living room, some unspoken pact that we didn't want to be separated, even if it meant sore backs. But when we finally laid everything out, he frowned. "You brought the thin one." I shrugged. "Didn't think it'd get cold." He sighed, shaking his head. "You're lucky I'm generous." He unzipped his own sleeping bag and spread it out wider. "We'll have to share, unless you want to freeze and die dramatically in the middle of the night." My pulse stuttered. I played it cool. "Well, dying dramatically is kind of my thing." He snorted and threw a pillow at me. We sat up side by side, under the same blanket. Not touching, not yet, but close enough that I could hear his breathing shift as he settled, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his body bleeding through the fabric between us. He lay on his side, facing me. I stared at the ceiling. "You remember that time you fake cried to get out of gym class?" he asked. Suddenly, I turned my head toward him, surprised. "You still remember that?" He grinned in the dark. "Dude, you were so committed. You even made your voice crack." I laughed quietly. I didn't fake it. I was having a bad day. "Oh," his voice softened. "I didn't know." There was a pause. He shifted slightly, propping his head up with his hand. "You never really told me stuff like that. I guess I didn't think I could." Another pause. This one felt heavier, more loaded. "You can now," he said softly. I didn't answer. I wasn't sure if I could trust my voice. Instead, I turned to lie on my side, mirroring him. Our faces were maybe a foot apart. His eyes searched my knot in a dramatic, movie way, but with a quiet curiosity, like he was waiting for me to open a door that had been shut too long. Then he smiled, small and lopsided. "You've always looked at me like that." I blinked. "Like what?" "Like I surprise you. Every time." His words hung in the air. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe for a second. He reached out, not to touch, but to brush a stray thread from my pillow. His hand stopped midair, hesitated, then pulled back. "It's getting late," he murmured, voice barely above a whisper. "We should sleep." But neither of us moved. I closed my eyes, hoping the darkness would settle the tremble. In my chest, behind my eyelids, I could still see him. The next day, the others planned a short hike to a nearby lookout point. It was the kind of thing we usually bailed on him because he hated uphill climbs. Me, because I hated being sweaty in front of people. But this time, we both agreed to go. Probably just to avoid the awkward silence that had settled between us since that shared sleeping bag moment. The tension hadn't vanished overnight. If anything, it had thickened, hanging just under the surface like mist clinging to the forest floor. He walked beside me the entire hike, occasionally bumping into my shoulder with his, tossing casual remarks like nothing had shifted. But it had, and I think we both knew it. Halfway to the lookout, one of the girls twisted her ankle. Our group scattered, some escorting her back to the cabin, others pushing ahead to finish the trail. And somehow, again, it was just the two of us, I guess. "We're the stragglers," he said, glancing at me with a crooked grin. "Not like we haven't been before," I muttered, trying to keep my breath steady. The woods around us were quiet, now just the crunch of leaves underfoot and birds overhead. We kept walking for a while, the trail narrowing, winding through rocks and roots that forced us into single file. He led, brushing aside branches, so I wouldn't get hit, occasionally offering a hand to help me over uneven ground. And then, we heard it. A low, groaning pop echoed behind us, followed by a soft thud. I turned. A tree had fallen, maybe 30 feet behind old, rotted out, and now completely blocking the narrow path back. Guess we're not going that way, he muttered, walking back to examine it. There was no danger, but it was a problem. We were stuck between the blocked path and a fork in the trail we didn't recognize. He checked his phone. No signal, of course. So what now? I asked. He looked around. There's a ranger shed on the map somewhere off the trail. Might have a signal up on that ridge. We didn't say it, but we both knew we might be out here longer than expected, so we walked by the time we reached the ridge. The sun had begun to dip, casting golden light over the woods. The air cooled, and sweat chilled on the back of my neck. The ranger shed was real but old, maybe even abandoned. Just a wooden frame with a roof, a dusty bench, and no door. He sat down and exhaled hard. Well, we're definitely winning the most isolated award. I managed a tired laugh, sitting beside him, our knees brushing. Silence wrapped around us, but not the uncomfortable kind. It was the kind that hummed with things unspoken. My skin buzzed where we touched. He leaned back, resting against the wall, stretching out his legs. You okay? I nodded, staring ahead. Yeah, you. Fine. Just thinking. I turned to look at him, and he was already watching me. There was something in his expression, quiet, focused, like he was waiting for me to say something I hadn't dared to. You ever think, he began, voice slower now, how weird it is, how close we are? I froze. What do you mean? He shrugged, but not casually. Just, you and me. We've always been this tight, and we never really talked about it. I swallowed. Do we need to? He smiled faintly. Maybe not. But sometimes I wonder what would happen if we did. The world tilted. I looked away too quickly, heart hammering. My fingers curled into my sleeves, trying to ground myself. What did he mean by that? Was it just another one of his teasing remarks? Or, before I could say anything, he shifted beside me, shoulder grazing mine. You're doing it again, he said gently. Doing what? Thinking so hard you forget to breathe. I laughed under my breath, embarrassed. Yeah, well, it's kind of my specialty. He nudged me. You don't have to, you know, not around me. It was too much, too close, too real. I stood abruptly and stepped out of the shed, the forest suddenly too loud. He followed, slower, but didn't say anything. I stood at the edge of the ridge, staring out at the landscape below. The trees stretched endlessly, painted in amber and green, like the whole world was holding its breath. I don't know what we're doing, I said finally, not turning around. You're my best friend, and lately, I feel like I don't know what's a joke and what's not. He came up behind me, stopping just close enough for me to feel the warmth of him at my back. I'm not always joking, he said quietly. I closed my eyes. The wind rustled the leaves above us. A bird called, out in the distance. I'm scared, I admitted. He didn't ask of what. He didn't have to. I get it, he whispered. Me too. We stood there in silence, the air between us charged and heavy, and then without warning he reached for my wrist. Just a light touch, barely there, but it was enough. Enough to make my breath hitch. Enough to make the dam inside me crack. Turned to face him. His eyes searched mine, not with the bravado he always wore, but with something bare, unshielded. I don't want to ruin this, I whispered. Me either, he replied. Then he took one step closer. We weren't touching, not quite, but I could feel the electricity between us like a live wire. I think about it too, he said. More than I want to admit. I swallowed hard. I don't know what it means, I murmured. Or what happens next. He smiled small, unsure, but real. Me neither. But I know I don't want to keep pretending. His hand found mine, just the fingers, tentative and slow. We can figure it out, he said. Together. The sun dipped further below the ridge, casting the forest in that golden twilight where everything felt half-dreamed. We sat in the open ranger shed again, wordless after he'd taken my hand. We hadn't let go, even after the moment passed like both of us were afraid the silence between our fingers was stronger than anything we could say aloud. I don't know how long we sat there. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. But the weight of unspoken feelings pressed down heavier than the night air around us. He broke the silence first. You know. His thumb brushed gently across my knuckle. I used to tell myself it was normal, the way I felt around you. My heart thud. D-E-D. He went on, voice quieter. Like everyone gets attached to their best friend, right? Everyone has that one person who just fits. I didn't say anything. I was scared if I did, the fragile thing forming between us would crack. He glanced at me, his smile almost apologetic. But then it got harder to ignore, like when we wrestled last summer. You remember that? I did. I remembered every second. You had me pinned, and you looked down at me with that stupid smirk, and I swear, for a second, I forgot how to breathe. I turned to him slowly. You said it was just wrestling, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, eyes flicking down. Yeah, I did. And I told myself that's all it was, just messing around. But it wasn't. Not for me. The air shifted. I wanted to speak. I wanted to match his honesty with my own, but the words caught in my throat. I had dreamed of this moment, fantasized about it in 100 different versions, and now that it was here, I was terrified. What do you want me to say? I asked, not unkindly, just lost in the storm of everything I was feeling. Nothing, he said quickly. I don't want to pressure you. I needed you to know, because I can't keep pretending anymore. I can't laugh with you and sleep next to you and walk around like you're just my friend when my chest aches every time you look at me. That was the moment. The one that shattered everything I'd built to keep my feelings locked away. My voice was shaking when I answered. You think I don't feel that too? He blinked. Do you know how many times I almost told you? I continued, suddenly breathless. How many nights I laid awake wondering if I was the only one who felt, if that maybe I was reading everything wrong. Every time you touched me, or teased me, or looked at me like you were about to say something but didn't, I thought I was going crazy. He let out a breath like he'd been holding it for days. I'm scared, I admitted, because if this goes wrong, I don't know how to be in a world where I don't have you. He reached up, slow and cautious, his fingers brushing the side of my face. You're not gonna lose me. But what if it changes everything? I asked, my voice cracking. What if we ruin the best thing we've ever had? His touch lingered at my jawline. His hand was warm, steady. What if it becomes the best thing we've ever had? He said gently. My eyes searched his. There was no joke there, no tease, no smug grin. Just vulnerability. Just truth. My heartbeat roared in my ears. My chest was tight, my breathing uneven, but I nodded just once, sharp and certain, and then slowly, as if he didn't want to spook me, he leaned in. There was a breath of space between us, like the universe had paused, waiting for permission. I closed the distance. It wasn't a dramatic movie-style kiss. It was soft, tentative, an exhale of years of feelings we never said out loud. His lips moved against mine like he was scared I'd disappear. My hand gripped his shirt like I was scared he'd pull away. But he didn't. He held my face in both hands, grounding me, anchoring me. When we finally pulled apart, our foreheads rested together. His smile was breathless, unsure, and somehow brighter than anything I'd seen before. Well, he whispered, guess that wasn't just wrestling after all. I laughed, actually laughed. And he laughed too, and it was this moment, this dumb, beautiful, giddy moment that made me realize I'd been in love with him longer than I'd known what love really was. We sat like that for a while, fingers intertwined, words unnecessary. Later, When we started walking back toward the trail after catching just enough signal to message the group that we were fine, I glanced over at him. He caught me looking and raised an eyebrow. What? I shrugged. You're just different now. He smirked. Better or worse? I rolled my eyes. Don't let it go to your head. He bumped his shoulder into mine again, and this time I didn't flinch away. Back at the cabin, the fire pit was glowing low, and most of the group had already turned in for the night. We slipped in quietly, like nothing had changed, but everything had. I could feel it in the way our shoulders brushed and didn't pull away, in the way he stayed closer than usual, his hand resting lightly against my lower back as we crept through the hallway toward the living room. It was subtle, probably invisible to anyone else, but to me, it felt like gravity had shifted, and all the space between us had collapsed into something solid, something real. We unrolled the sleeping bag again, same as before, but this time, when we lay down side by side, he didn't hesitate to pull me a little closer. His arm slipped under my neck, and I let my head rest on his chest like it was the most natural thing in the world, and somehow, it was. Neither of us spoke at first, just breathed, slowly, in sync. The firelight flickered through the window and cast soft, moving shadows across the ceiling above us. Then he whispered, "So, how many times did you imagine kissing me before, tonight?" I laughed quietly, into his shirt. "You really want the number?" "Oh, I need it. For research purposes." I tilted my head to glance up at him. "Let's just say it's higher than your last math test score." "Ouch? Rude? True?" He grinned, then sighed. "I can't believe we were so good at avoiding this." I nodded. We were professionals. Yeah, world-class emotional repressors. We both chuckled, and the laughter faded into something softer, comfortable, quiet, like the silence between waves. Then his hand found mine under the blanket, fingers fitting between mine easily. He gave a small squeeze, just enough to say, "I'm here." "Can I tell you something stupid?" he asked. "Always. I kept your sketch from junior year, the one you made of the arcade we used to go to. You left it in my notebook, remember?" I paused, surprised. "You still have that?" "Yeah. It's folded up in the back of my drawer. I look at it sometimes when I miss us." My chest tightened in that strange, sweet way it does when something matters too much. "I didn't know," I murmured. "I didn't want to admit how much I missed you when we drifted apart for a while last year." I looked at him then, really looked. "Why did we drift?" He hesitated. "I think I started realizing how I felt about you, and it scared me. I figured if I kept my distance, I'd get over it." I nodded slowly. "I did the same." He smiled faintly. "We're idiots. Complete idiots." We lay there in silence again, but this time, the quiet was full of warmth, of possibility. After a while, he spoke again. "So, what happens when we go home?" I shifted slightly, adjusting so I could face him more directly. "You mean, when life gets loud again?" "Yeah," he said softly. "When we're not just two idiots sharing a sleeping bag in the woods." I considered it. "I don't know. But I want this, whatever this is, to keep going. I want more late nights, more stupid jokes, more kisses that don't have to be hidden." He smiled, eyes crinkling a little at the corners. Yeah, even if it's messy." "Especially then," I said. "Messy means it's real." He exhaled slowly, like he'd been waiting to hear those words. "Well," he said, "you're stuck with me now." I leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to his jaw. "Good. I've been stuck on you for years." He laughed softly and pulled me closer, tucking his chin over my head. We drifted off like that Tarm's tangled breaths, steady. The warmth between us no longer cautious or half-hidden, but honest. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't scared of what came next. We didn't rush back to the cabin life once the weekend ended. No dramatic announcements. No sudden changes to our routines. Just us, gradually unfolding into something more. It was in the way he lingered a little longer when we said goodbye, after class. In the way he texted me home yet, even when he knew I'd barely left the parking lot. In the way we shared silence on video calls, not because there was nothing to say, but because we didn't need to fill every second anymore. It felt steady, and that was what surprised me most. I always thought love would feel like chaos, like butterflies slamming around my chest, like fear wrapped in hope. But with him, it felt like exhaling, like coming home after a long day and knowing someone was there, already waiting, already warm. A couple of weeks later, he invited me over for a movie night, just the two of us. His roommates were gone. It was quiet, familiar. He handed me a hoodie when I walked in. My old one. Figured it belonged with you, he said, tossing it to me. Smells like me now though. I held it up, breathing it in just enough to mess with him. I'll survive, he smirked. Bet you missed it. I missed you in it, I shot back without thinking. He raised his eyebrows, impressed. Wow, bold of you, I grinned. Took me long enough. We didn't even finish the movie. About halfway through, he leaned into me, head against my shoulder, fingers playing lazily with the hem of my sleeve. I rested my chin lightly on his hair and let my arms slide around his back. No tension, no pretending. Just warmth and gravity and the soft, shared rhythm of two hearts sinking in the quiet. Sometime after midnight, I sat up and looked at him. So, we doing this? He blinked sleepily. What, cuddling on couches and stealing each other's hoodies? I rolled my eyes. No, I mean this, us. He sat up too, rubbing his eyes. We already are, aren't we? I smiled. Guess. I just needed to hear it. He reached for my hand without hesitation. Yeah, we're doing this. Then, he paused. But, just so we're clear, if you ever try to beat me at wrestling again, I'm kissing you to distract you. I laughed, loud and unfiltered. That's not fair. Love isn't fair, he said with a shrug, pulling me in closer. Then I hope you fight dirty, I teased. He looked at me, really looked at me, eyes full of something deep and unguarded. I hope you let me. We fell asleep on that couch, limbs tangled, breaths matched. The next morning, before I left, I noticed something taped to his fridge. A sketch, faded pencil lines, slightly crumpled my old drawing of the arcade. But next to it now was a new one, a tiny, messy doodle in his handwriting. 2 stick figures in a sleeping bag. One labeled Idiot Number 1, the other Idiot Number 2. Hearts floating above their heads. I turned to look at him, and he just shrugged like it was no big deal. Figured it belonged next to the first one, and that was it. That was the moment I knew we'd be okay. We hadn't made any dramatic promises, no declarations of forever, but it was in the small things. In the hoodie, returned. In the sketch hung side by side. In the way his fingers found mine without hesitation, even in silence. We didn't know what the future held. Maybe it would be messy. Maybe it would be complicated. But we wanted to figure it out together, and for now, that was enough. Maybe it started with wrestling, but the way he held me, that was real, and he meant it.